So a few weeks ago, I posed a question to my community. What are your spiciest hot takes about Diablo 2 Resurrected? And you fellas came through. Not all of them are the spiciest takes, but I decided to respond to any of the ones I thought were interesting and the ones that I had opinions and thoughts on. I do want to mention too, I did blur out the names. I don't know if it's necessary, but I didn't want anyone catching any flack in the comments from people who disagreed with me. You know, people on the internet sometimes are just complete ass. And I just didn't want any of that kind of negativity directed directly at anyone who did make any of these comments. Now, first up, make crafted items a more viable option to compete with uniques and rune words. Now, in general, I suppose I do agree with this statement, but I will say, and this is going to come up a lot, I generally err on the side of not changing the game anymore. Now, it's not that I don't think there's things that could be done in order to make the game better, but I'm just nervous. I don't want to say not trust, but I'm just worried that there's going to be changes to make the game even like crazier and make it, well, too easy for that matter. How spicy of a hot take this would be, I would say it's not really that high. I'm kind of torn between a 3 and a 4, so we'll give it a 3.5 out of 10 on the spiciness meter. Up next, we'll take a look at nerf Grief, 2x base damage of melee and ranged weapons. Now, Grief, especially for the price, is crazy powerful. You know, this kind of falls in the same category as the other one. I'm always leery for changes, but all the other, like really a lot of the other anyways, melee and ranged weapons do kind of feel underpowered relative to especially the way casters work, the way you can minus enemy resistance, boosting up the damage a ton and things like that. So perhaps that would be true. Doubling the damage, I don't know. I'm not great at understanding exactly what doubling the damage, if that would make everything too overpowered, if that would do almost nothing. But in general, I do agree with this. Maybe I would leave Grief where it's at, but maybe boost up the other stuff. So as a spiciness meter right here, I mean, I'd put this one at like a 3 out of 10. And we'll jump into one that I think is another spicy one. Maybe y'all don't. We have to let me know. But hardcore is the most rewarding way to play the game. I'm going to be honest. I personally don't particularly enjoy hardcore. I do it on, from time to time because I know that the viewers like watching it. And there is definitely, I don't know the size of the community that absolutely loves hardcore more than softcore, but there's definitely a solid amount of you out there. But yeah, man, for me, I couldn't imagine like playing like, and all of a sudden I get slapped down. I lose my Infinity, I lose my Enigma, I lose my Griffins, I lose my 2S. So I could not imagine. Call to Arms gone. I just could not imagine all of that happening. So, I mean, for hardcore or just losing all of that progress on the character, because I know you can like loot your own body if you have, what is that, online hold the game. Like I said, I don't play hardcore a lot because it's too much of a risk to lose all of that gameplay time just for me and my calculation. So this one, while there is kind of a lot of people that agree with you, I also feel like this is kind of like a controversial one. You're either on one side or you're way on the other side. So for the spiciness level, for this hot take, I'm going to drop this one in at probably a 6.5 out of 10. Next up is just a little long, so I'm just going to paraphrase, put in the cube recipes and things like that in the game so you don't have to Google everything. I mean, nobody would be against that. That's super unspicy. Nice to have stackable gems in runes. You don't have to have a million mules for storing everything. I mean, no player, I believe anyways, would be against that. And they say new playable characters. Ooh, man, that would be a really hype thing for the game, I suppose. Once again, for things that actually change the game like that, I usually lead on the side of no, but I mean, I could get on board with it, I suppose. So this one, I feel like a super unspicy take. I'd give it like a 1 out of 10, but I agree with pretty much everything here. Next up, this comment is, there is zero excuse that D2R he's talking about doesn't have a physical release. And I know what you mean here. And actually, I'm going to change the way you're worded this here. Not that there's zero excuse. You mean to say there's no good excuse or an excuse you agree with, because there's definitely an excuse. It makes Blizzard and stuff more money. It costs money to put out a physical release, and to send someone a copy, like me, if I bought it, they'd have to make a CD and give it to me, when I could just digitally download it, and then they don't have to include that packaging and stuff. So there absolutely is an excuse, but any gamer, pretty much every single gamer, does not agree with the excuse. I would love to have a physical copy as well. But yeah, it's an unfortunate reality that really all types of media that ever exist from here on out is pretty much going to be that way. So as for spicy takeness, I don't know, we'll throw a 2 out of 10 on it. Now here's one that's going to be pretty high on the spicy mark. Mosaic needs a buff. Now this is obviously someone just being absolutely ridiculous. But if this was a real take, I mean, I'd give it a 10 out of 10 because that's just obscene. So I'm totally content playing this game for another 20 years and never touching Diablo 4. Beautiful reskin and update. Now, personally, D4, I am going to touch it from time to time. I don't think it's the worst game ever made, but I agree with everything else pretty much wholeheartedly. I'm not a video game expert. I don't know everything about every single game. But in my opinion, from what I've seen and whatnot, what I've played, Diablo 2 Resurrected could be one of the best remakes or reskins, or whatever you want to call it, of all time, in my opinion. So we'll put this on the spiciness mark. I mean, geez, we'll throw another 2 out of 10. These aren't particularly spicy. Hopefully a little further down, we start falling into some more hot takes. Oh boy, this is one that's not going to be very popular. I'll put this on the hot take category. Stash space is fine, and we should only have 1 tab of shared stash space. Oh my gosh. So I'm going to be honest, bud. Whoever put this comment, by the way, no comments are wrong, remember, but you're going to be way out on an island on this one. If I would say most people would say there needs to be more stash tabs, not less. So finally, we're dipping our toe in that hot, spicy pond right here. I would have to throw this one probably at, ooh, it's up there, probably like an 8 out of 10. The hot takes are coming in real hot. Check this one out. Hot take. Nerf Hammerton, Nerf Javazon, Blizzard, and Nova Sorceress. Of course, just completely rework Mosaic entirely, but that should be universally agreed upon unless we can get hero editor characters online. So the thing is, I would say what I agree with this post, I would say Mosaic needs to be reworked for sure. It's just way too powerful. Even counting the rune cost, even if that thing had just 3 Zod runes in it, it would still be too powerful in my opinion. As for nerfing Hammerton, Javazon, Blizzard, Nova, I don't know about that. I think it's perfectly fine having some builds that are more powerful and some that are less. But you don't want to have all the builds right here and then have one, whoop, way up out of the screen like the way Mosaic Assassin is, to be perfectly honest. So this one is kind of spicy and kind of not spicy. We're going to drop this one at... maybe it's a little higher on the spicy level than I first thought here. We're going to drop it in at a 6 out of 10. Now here's a little bit of a hot take off metal builds, which of course he means off meta, but are cool for like a minute, but let's be honest here, fellas, they actually suck. Now this one obviously meant to be kind of provocative, to kind of get people's juices flowing, get them kind of riled up. I could tell by the way it is worded. And I guess the sentiment is true, but man, saying that a build sucks when it can slap down monsters on players 3, no problem. I don't agree with the framing of the way that's worded, so it is definitely hot take-ish. And like I said, I agree with the general statement of what it's trying to say. I just wholeheartedly disagree with the mentality behind it. So, but it does raise it up on the hot take level, so I'm probably going to drop this one at, well, once again, we'll call it a 6 out of 10. So D2R has the potential to be the greatest game of all time, but there's just not enough content in the end game to keep me playing. Now, depending on who you talk to, this wouldn't be a hot take, but commenting on a Diablo 2 Resurrected specific channel, this one gets boosted pretty high up the hot take meter. Now, in my opinion, this is definitely one of the greatest games of all time. I don't like saying literally anything is literally the greatest, because I mean, it's obviously 100% opinion, but most people would agree that with the popularity and everything, the games they played, that this is one of the greatest of all time. And the whole statement of not enough end game, the thing is the way that I play games, I guess, I don't necessarily play the handheld end game, oh wait, the developers decided that I'm supposed to run this greater rift forever, so that's the end game of the game. In Diablo 2, that's just not how it is. There's so many different challenges you can do. You can jump into the PvP stuff, jump into the speed running stuff, obviously pushing to 99. They made it easier. It's more obtainable for more people. You can push that way. There's a lot of different things you can do, the Holy Grail, like I did. So I know that most people are going to argue that's not actually endgame, and that's fine, maybe in the traditional sense. So I guess I'm not going to go too high in the spicy meter for this one. I guess we'll go with, we'll drop it in at a 4 out of 10. Now here's one I thought was going to go in a direction I wouldn't agree with, but in the end, I think that I do. So despite people thinking that Mosaic is overpowered, D2R is actually in a real good spot right now. Now, the reason I said that is because Mosaic in general, I think, is overpowered and does need to be nerfed, but I also agree with the second half of the statement as well. It's very tough and very impossible to make something that everyone is going to agree with literally everything. But I guarantee you, there are people playing Diablo 2 right now that literally would not be playing if the Mosaic Assassin did not get invented. There are some people that absolutely love it. And the reason that I don't love it, it's just way too overpowered. I don't want to have to change the brightness on my monitor just to accommodate one individual particular build. So the thing is that even though I think it's overpowered and this and that, I just don't play it. If I just never use it, I never have to see it. Now, as for jumping into games, when I stream, I guess I can have a little bit more control over who I'm playing with. So I just say, hey, I don't play with anyone who plays Mosaic Assassin because I just don't want to see it. Now, if I'm playing in a split MF game and they're off in the game somewhere and I don't see them, I don't care. I'm glad that people are having fun playing Mosaic Assassin. So even though I think that is a misstep, Mosaic Assassin, and I wish it kind of wasn't in the game, in general, I think the game really has been put in a good place. And I've said that, I don't want a lot more changes to the game because I'm kind of worried that they're going to mess things up. If I had to be honest, really, 90% at least of the changes that they made to Diablo 2 Resurrected from the old school LOD have been good changes. So I'm going to drop this one, maybe a little bit under 5. Maybe we'll drop this in once again. I think that's 3 in a row here. Another 4 out of 10 on the spicy meter. And here's one that is really low on the spicy meter, I will say. Most people dislike Act 3. So, Act 3 until LK is one of the worst levels in the game. A lot of people have a disdain for this because the marshes, have the souls in them and they're incredibly long. They take forever. Having to go get all those different pieces can take a very long time. And then after you obviously get past LK, it's all just one direction. You just kind of go, 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 go. So I do get the sentiment. As it being one of the worst levels in the game, as it being one of the worst, I kind of agree. But if you understood how to do the map reading in it, it would be way better. Now, I do not understand the map reading, which is one of the reasons I don't really like it. And Act 3, those open spaces are, in my experience, one of the hardest ones in order to actually read. Now, I understand if you go up one side, you'll usually have all the entrances to eventually find the correct one that you need, but you never know which one you really have to explore. From what I've seen, maybe there is some information on the net somewhere to kind of learn that kind of stuff, but I do essentially agree with this, and really this is like a 1 out of 10 for spicy meter. This is like one of the most common criticisms kind of the games and of the different levels. Now that was like the most interesting comments, and I didn't want to say too many that were like too redundant, like Diablo 2 is the best game ever made. That one was a pretty common one and an incredibly unspicy take. But if you enjoyed the video, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe up for future Diablo 2 Resurrected content. Peace out, fellas, and keep slaying.